The alarm bells rang through the ship like angry metal birds. Jake Martinez looked up from his computer screen and listened. 3 short rings, then 2 long ones. That meant trouble in space. Jake worked as the communication officer on the UES Horizon. His job was to listen to radio signals from other ships and planets. Today had been quiet until now. All crew 2 stations, came the voice of Captain Lisa Chen over the speakers. We have a distress signal. Jake put on his headphones and turned up the volume on his equipment. The signal was weak and full of static. He could hear someone speaking, but it was not in any human language he knew. The voice sounded scared and desperate. Captain Jake called into his microphone. The signal's coming from about 2 million miles away. It's an unknown language, but the computer is trying to translate it. Captain Chen arrived at Jake's station within minutes. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair, tied back in a tight bun. She had been flying ships for 20 years and could smell trouble from far away. What do we have? She asked. Jake pointed at his screen. The computer thinks it's a distress call. Something about engine failure and life support running low. The ship sending it is not human. The captain frowned. Aliens? Yes, ma'am. The computer says the ship design matches something called the Zephyrian Empire. Captain Chen's face went pale. Everyone in space knew about the Zephyrians. They were tall, strong aliens who loved to fight. Their empire controlled dozens of star systems. Most humans tried to avoid them. Are they asking for help or threatening us? The captain asked. Jake listened again to the signal. Help, I think. The voice sounds like someone who is very scared. The captain thought for a long moment. Helping aliens could be dangerous, but leaving someone to die in space was against everything humans believed in. Set course for their location, she ordered, and call Dr. Sam Johnson to the bridge. If we're going to help aliens, we'll need our best medical officer ready. The Horizon turned toward the distress signal. Jake kept listening to the alien voice. It was getting weaker. Whoever was out there was running out of time. 2 hours later, they found the alien ship. It was much larger than the Horizon, but looked badly damaged. Holes had been burned through its metal sides. One engine was completely gone. Life signs. Asked Captain Chen. Lieutenant Betty Moore checked her instruments. I'm reading about 20 aliens inside. Most are in the main part of the ship, but 3 of them are in a separate section that looks like it might be important. Dr. Johnson arrived on the bridge. He was a tall man with kind eyes and gentle hands. He had saved more lives than anyone could count. What do we know about Zephyrian biology? The captain asked him. They breathe the same air we do, Dr. Johnson said. Their blood is blue instead of red. They're stronger than humans, but get hurt in the same ways. I can probably help them if they're injured. Captain Chen made her decision. We're going over. There, Jake. Try to contact them again. Tell them we're here to help. Jake spoke into his microphone, and the computer translated his words into the Zephyrian language. Unknown vessel. This is the human ship U.S. Horizon. We received your distress call. We are here to help you. The reply came quickly. The voice was different now, deeper and more commanding. We have in ship. This is Commander Vexnell of the Imperial Guard. We do not need help from your kind. But then another voice came through, weaker and more desperate. This voice spoke in broken English. Please help us. We are dying. Captain Chen looked at Jake. That second voice, it sounded different. Yes, ma'am. Younger and scared. The captain thought again. We're going over. Jake, you're coming with us. Your communication skills might be needed. Jake had never been on an alien ship before. The idea made him nervous, but he nodded. Yes, ma'am. The rescue team put on their spacesuits and took a small shuttle over to the damaged alien ship. Besides Jake and Dr. Johnson, they brought along Security Chief Carl White and Engineer Lucy Davis. The inside of the alien ship was dark and filled with smoke. Emergency lights flashed red and blue. The air smelled like burned metal and something sweet that Jake could not identify. The aliens were much taller than humans, about 7 feet on average. Their skin was pale gray, and they had large eyes that glowed slightly in the dark. They wore dark blue uniforms with silver decorations. Commander Vexnall met them at the airlock. He was even taller than the others and had scars on his face. He did not look happy to see humans. "I did not ask for your help," he said in perfect English. Dr. Johnson stepped forward. "People are hurt. That's all that matters to me." The commander's expression softened slightly. "Follow me. But do not touch anything unless I tell you to." They walked through damaged corridors filled with injured aliens. Dr. Johnson immediately went to work, using his medical equipment to help the wounded. His supplies worked well on alien biology. Jake noticed that some of the aliens looked at him with curiosity rather than hostility. They seemed surprised that humans would risk their lives to help strangers. "Where's the person who called for help?" Jake asked Commander Vex-Nell. The commander's face became hard again. "She is not your concern." "She?" Jake asked. The commander said nothing and walked away. Jake followed the sound of the weaker voice he had heard on the radio. It led him to a smaller section of the ship, separated from the main area by heavy doors. Inside, he found her. The alien princess sat alone in a damaged room. She was smaller than the other Zephyrians, with silver hair that fell around her shoulders. Her skin was paler than the others, almost white. Most importantly, Jake noticed that her legs were twisted and thin. She could not walk. She looked up. When Jake entered, her large eyes were filled with tears. "You are the human who answered our call," she said in careful English. "Yes, my name is Jake Martinez. What's your name?" "I am Princess Kiravel, daughter of Emperor Zephdor." She looked down at her hands. "I am the reason my guards are ashamed to ask for help." Jake sat down on a broken piece of equipment, so he would be at her eye level. "Why would they be ashamed of you?" "Because I am broken," she said simply. "In Zephyrian culture, the weak are cast out. I should have been killed when I was born, but my father could not bring himself to do it. So I live in shame, hidden away from others." Jake felt his heart break for this young alien who had been rejected by her own people. He looked around the damaged room and saw how isolated she was from the others. "You're not broken," he said gently. "You're just different." Princess Kiravel looked at him with surprise. "You do not understand. I cannot walk. I cannot fight. I cannot do anything useful." Jake thought about his grandmother, who had spent her last years in a wheelchair but remained the wisest person he had ever known. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small music box that she had given him before she died. "My grandmother gave this to me," he said, winding up the music box. "She couldn't walk either in her final years, but she was the strongest person I ever knew." The music box began to play a soft, gentle melody. It was an old Earth song called Amazing Grace. Princess Kiravel listened with wonder in her eyes. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Jake placed the music box in her hands. "Keep it. Music has power to heal hearts, even when bodies cannot be healed." The princess held the music box carefully, as if it were made of the most precious material in the universe. For the first time since Jake had met her, she smiled. "I will treasure this always," she said. Then she looked directly into his eyes, with an intensity that made him feel like she could see into his soul. "I will always be with you, Jake Martinez. This I promise." The translation device on Jake's belt made a strange sound, as if the princess's words carried deeper meaning than the simple English could express. Commander Vexnell appeared in the doorway. "Human, we are ready to transfer to your ship for repairs." Jake stood up, but Princess Kiravel caught his hand. "Thank you for seeing me as more than my limitations." As they prepared to leave the damaged alien ship, Jake could not shake the feeling that something important had just happened. The princess's promise echoed in his mind, and he wondered what she really meant by those words. The small music box continued to play its gentle melody in the princess's hands, creating a bridge between two very different worlds. 3 months had passed since Jake Martinez helped rescue the Zephyrian ship. Life aboard the EU's Horizon had returned to normal, or so everyone thought. Jake worked his usual shifts monitoring space communications and helping with diplomatic messages between human colonies. But strange things were happening. It started small. Jake would be working late at night when his computer would suddenly show him new star maps. These maps showed safe routes through dangerous areas of space that no human had ever explored before. When he asked the ship's navigation officer, Lieutenant Betty Moore, about them, she looked confused. "I didn't send you any new maps," she said, checking her own computer. "These routes aren't in our database." Jake looked at the detailed charts on his screen. They showed ways to avoid asteroid fields and hostile alien territories. The information was incredibly valuable, but he had no idea where it came from. "Maybe there's a glitch in the system," Betty suggested, but Jake knew it wasn't a glitch. The maps were too detailed and too accurate. Someone was sending them to him. A week later, Jake found a small package outside his quarters. Inside were 3 rare crystals that could power ship engines for months. These crystals were worth more money than Jake made in a year, and they were impossible to get in human space. He took the crystals to engineer Lucy Davis. "Where did you get these?" she asked, holding one crystal up to the light. It glowed with a soft blue energy. "I found them outside my room," Jake said. Lucy frowned. "Jake, these are Zephyrian power crystals. They don't exist anywhere in human territory. The only way to get them is to trade with the Zephyrian Empire. And we haven't had any contact with them since the rescue mission." Jake felt a strange warmth in his chest when Lucy mentioned the Zephyrians. For just a moment, he could swear he heard soft music playing, like the melody from his grandmother's music box. "Are you feeling all right?" Lucy asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," Jake said, but he wasn't sure that was true. The mysterious gifts continued. Medical supplies appeared in Dr. Johnson's office with notes saying they were for the kind human healer. Advanced technology components showed up in the engineering section. The ship's food stores somehow received exotic spices and preserved foods that tasted better than anything the crew had eaten before. "Captain?" Chen called a meeting with her senior officers. "Someone is helping us," she said, looking around the conference room. "Our supply requests are being filled before we even send them. Our navigation systems keep getting updated with better routes. And yesterday, we received a warning message about pirates in the Vega sector just hours before they attacked a cargo ship there." Security Chief Carl White leaned forward. "Do we have a spy on board?" "That's what I want to find out," the captain said. "The help is useful, but I don't like mysteries on my ship." Jake felt uncomfortable during the meeting. He knew the strange events were connected to him somehow, but he didn't understand how or why. Meanwhile, far away on the Zephyrian homeworld, Princess Kiravel sat in her tower room, holding Jake's music box. The melody played softly as she concentrated her mind across the vast distances of space. The princess had been born with a secret that her people feared. She possessed powerful psychic abilities that allowed her to see across great distances and influence events on other worlds. Her physical disabilities were actually connected to her mental powers. The same genetic condition that weakened her body had given her a mind, capable of touching other minds across the galaxy, but these abilities came with a terrible cost. Each time she used her powers to help Jake and his crew, she gave up some of her own life energy. She was slowly dying, and she knew it. The Zephyrian Royal Council had noticed the changes in human activities. Their spies reported that human ships were suddenly avoiding dangerous areas and making profitable discoveries. Human diplomats were negotiating better trade deals. Human colonies were thriving in ways they never had before. "The humans have become too successful too quickly," said Counselor Rex Moore, the Emperor's chief advisor. "They must have found a new weapon or ally." Emperor Zephdor sat on his crystal throne, listening to the reports. He was a massive alien, even by Zephyrian standards, with silver scars covering his dark gray skin. His daughter's condition had always been a source of shame for him, but he loved her, despite what others said. "What do you suggest?" the Emperor asked. "We should investigate," Rexmore said. "We should consider whether your daughter's condition might be involved." The Emperor's eyes flashed with anger. "My daughter is confined to her tower. She has no contact with the outside world." "With respect, my lord," Rexmore continued carefully, "there have been reports of strange energy readings from her quarters. Perhaps we should examine her more closely." The Emperor wanted to refuse, but the evidence was troubling. His daughter had been different since the rescue by the human ship. She seemed happier, which had pleased him. But now he wondered if there was more to it. Back on the horizon, Jake was having strange dreams. He dreamed of crystal cities under alien suns. He dreamed of a silver-haired princess sitting alone in a tall tower holding a small music box. In his dreams, he could hear her voice calling to him across the darkness of space. "Jake, are you listening?" she would say in his dreams. "I promised I would always be with you." Jake began to understand that Princess Caravel was somehow responsible for all the help his ship had been receiving, but he didn't know how she was doing it, or why she was risking herself to help humans she barely knew. Dr. Johnson noticed that Jake looked tired and worried. "You've been having trouble sleeping," the doctor observed during Jake's regular health checkup. "Just some strange dreams," Jake said. "Want to talk about them?" Jake hesitated. How could he explain dreams about an alien princess without sounding crazy? "I keep dreaming about the Zephyrian princess we helped, the one with the music box." Dr. Johnson nodded thoughtfully. "But that was a traumatic experience for all of us." "It's normal to have dreams about it, but these dreams feel different," Jake said. "They feel real." The doctor gave Jake some mild sleeping medication, but the dreams continued. If anything, they became more vivid. Jake began to see not just the princess, but also glimpses of Zephyrian military ships gathering in space. He saw meetings between angry alien commanders. He saw maps of human territory with attack routes marked in red. One night, Jake woke up in a cold sweat. In his dream, he had seen a massive Zephyrian fleet preparing for war. The alien commanders were convinced that humans had somehow captured and weaponized Princess Caravel. They were planning to attack human colonies to get her back. Jake jumped out of bed and ran to the bridge. The night shift officer, Ensign Pete Collins, looked surprised to see him. "Jake, what are you doing here?" "I need to check something," Jake said, sitting down at his communication station. He began scanning space for signs of alien ships at first. He found nothing. Then his equipment picked up faint energy signatures at the edge of sensor range. Ships were moving in formation toward human space, just as he had seen in his dream. "Pete," Jake said quietly, "you need to wake up the captain. We have incoming ships." Ensign Collins looked at Jake's screen and went pale. "How many?" "At least 50, Jake said. "Maybe more." The alarms began to ring throughout the ship once again. But this time, Jake knew they were not responding to a distress call. They were facing the possibility of war. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Princess Caravel collapsed in her tower room. Using her psychic powers to warn Jake had taken almost all of her remaining strength. The music box fell from her hands and stopped playing. Guards rushed into her room and found her unconscious on the floor. As they carried her to the medical wing, Counselor Rexmore smiled coldly. "Now we have proof," he told the Emperor. "Your daughter has been using forbidden psychic abilities. To aid the humans, she is a traitor to the Empire." Emperor Zephdor felt his heart break as he looked at his unconscious daughter. He loved her, but the evidence was clear. She had betrayed her own people to help aliens. "Confine her to the security wing," he said quietly. "Prepare the fleet for war." The princess had kept her promise to always be with Jake. But now that promise might destroy everything she had tried to protect. The bridge she had built between two species, with her gifts and sacrifice, was about to become the battlefield for an interstellar war. Jake continued to monitor the approaching Zephyrian fleet, not knowing that the princess who had been helping him was now a prisoner of her own people. The strange dreams had stopped completely, leaving him feeling empty and alone. Something terrible was coming, and Jake feared that his simple act of kindness 3 months ago had somehow set in motion events that would lead to the destruction of everything he held dear. The Zephyrian war fleet moved through space like a dark storm cloud. Admiral Ross Mitchell commanded over 100 ships, each one loaded with weapons and angry alien warriors. The admiral was the Emperor's brother and one of the most feared military leaders in the galaxy. Human colonies detected ahead reported his second-in-command, Captain Next Door. "Should we begin the attack?" Admiral Mitchell studied the star charts on his command screen. "Not yet. First, we demand the return of Princess Caravel. If the humans refuse, then we will take her by force." The Admiral truly believed that humans had kidnapped his niece and were using her. psychic powers as a weapon against the Zephyrian Empire. The idea that she might be helping humans by choice never occurred to him. In Zephyrian culture, family, loyalty was more important than personal feelings. On the human colony of New Boston, alarms were ringing in the government buildings. Colony Administrator Helen Price had just received an emergency message from Earth Command. A massive alien fleet was approaching human space, and all colonies were ordered to prepare for possible evacuation. "How long do we have?" asked security. Chief Mark Davis. "Maybe 6 hours," Helen replied, looking at the tactical display. "The fleet is moving fast." Meanwhile, aboard the UES Horizon, Captain Chen was trying to understand what was happening. The ship had been ordered to join the human defense fleet, but they were badly outnumbered. "Jake," the captain called. "Any word from the Zephyrians? Are they trying to communicate?" Jake had been monitoring all frequencies for hours. "Nothing yet, ma'am. But I keep getting the feeling that something is wrong," but Jake didn't tell. The captain was that he had been having more strange experiences. Sometimes he would close his eyes and see flashes of images that didn't make sense. He saw a silver-haired princess lying in a dark cell, saw alien guards with weapons, saw meetings where angry voices discussed something called correctional termination. Dr. Johnson noticed that Jake looked pale and tired. "You should get some rest," the doctor suggested. "I can't," Jake said. "Every time I close my eyes, I see things. Terrible things." "What kind of things?" Jake hesitated, then decided to trust the doctor. "I think Princess Kiravel is in trouble. I keep seeing her in some kind of prison. And I hear voices talking about killing her." Dr. Johnson frowned. "Jake, you've been under a lot of stress. Sometimes our minds create, it's not my imagination," Jake interrupted. "She's been helping us for months. The maps, the supplies, the warnings about danger. It was all her. Now she's being punished for it." Before Dr. Johnson could respond, the ship's communication system crackled to life. A deep, commanding voice spoke in perfect English. "Human vessels. This is Admiral Ross Mitchell of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. You have kidnapped Princess Kiravel and are using her as a weapon against our people. Turn her immediately, or we will destroy every human colony in this sector." "Captain?" Chen grabbed the microphone. "Admiral Mitchell, this is Captain Lisa Chen of the UES Horizon. We have not kidnapped anyone. Princess Kiravel was rescued by our crew 3 months ago, and she returned to Zephyrian space with her own people." "Lies," the Admiral's voice boomed. "Our princess has been using forbidden psychic abilities to aid human activities. She could only do this if she was being forced by human technology." Jake suddenly understood. The Zephyrians didn't know that their princess had been helping humans by choice. They thought she was being controlled against her will. "Captain," Jake said urgently, "let me talk to him." Captain Chen looked doubtful, but she handed Jake the microphone. "Admiral Mitchell, this is Jake Martinez. I was part of the rescue team that helped Princess Kiravel. She was not kidnapped. She chose to help us." There was a long silence. Then the Admiral's voice returned, filled with anger. "You dare to speak of our princess, human? You will pay for your lies." The communication ended abruptly. On the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Mitchell turned to his advisors. "Prepare for attack. The humans refuse to return our princess." But Captain Nextdoor looked troubled. "Admiral, what if the human is telling the truth? What if the princess is helping them willingly?" The Admiral's eyes flashed with rage. "That is impossible. No Zephyrian would betray their own people for aliens." In her prison cell on the Zephyrian homeworld, Princess Kiravel was dying, using her psychic powers so extensively had drained her life force to dangerous levels. She lay on a cold metal bed, barely conscious, still holding Jake's music box. Emperor Zephdor visited her cell, accompanied by Counselor Rexmore and 2 guards. "My daughter," the Emperor said sadly, "why did you betray us?" The princess opened her eyes with great effort. "I did not betray anyone, Father. I chose to prevent a war by helping our enemies," Rexmore demanded. "By helping people who showed me kindness," she replied weakly. "The humans are not our enemies. They could be our allies if we let them." The Emperor shook his head. "The Council has decided. You will undergo correctional termination tomorrow. Your powers are too dangerous to be allowed to continue. Princess Curavel felt tears running down her cheeks. Correctional termination was a brutal procedure that would destroy her psychic abilities by removing parts of her brain. Most people who underwent it died during the process. "Father, please," she whispered. "There is another way." But the Emperor had already turned to leave. "I am sorry, my daughter. The decision is made." After her father left, Princess Curavel gathered her remaining strength. She had to warn Jake about what was coming. She had to try to stop the war, even if it cost her life. She closed her eyes and reached out across space with her mind.
Ow.
Effort was agonizing, but she managed to make contact with Jake's thoughts. Jake was in his quarters, trying to rest, when suddenly his mind was filled with images and voices. He saw the Zephyrian princess in her cell. He felt her pain and desperation, and he heard her voice in his mind. "Jake, can you hear me?" Jake sat up straight. "Princess, is that really you?" "Yes, I do not have much time. They plan to kill me tomorrow. But first I must warn you. My uncle leads a great fleet to human space. He believes you have kidnapped me." "We're trying to negotiate," Jake said, speaking aloud to his empty room. "But he won't listen. He will not listen because he cannot understand that I chose to help you. In our culture, family comes before everything. He thinks I have been forced to betray my people." Jake felt the princess's strength fading. "What can I do? I am going to try to escape. If I can reach human space, I can prove that I am helping you willingly. But I am very weak. I may not survive the journey." "Don't do it," Jake said. "It's too dangerous. I must try. Too many lives depend on stopping this war. Jake, if I do not survive, please remember that I kept my promise. I have always been with you, and I always will be." The connection faded, leaving Jake alone with his fears. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Princess Curavel waited until the guards changed shifts at midnight. Using the last of her psychic energy, she influenced the mind of a young guard. Making him forget to lock her cell door properly, she crawled from her bed, her legs unable to support her weight. The music box fell from her hands and clattered on the floor, but she managed to pick it up again. She would not leave Jake's gift behind. Moving slowly through the corridors, she avoided the security cameras and guards through careful use of her fading abilities. Each use of her powers brought her closer to death, but she continued. She reached the hangar bay where small scout ships were kept for emergency missions. With trembling hands, she managed to start one of the ships and launch it into space. Alarms began ringing throughout the Zephyrian capital city. Prison guards had discovered her empty cell. "Find her." Emperor Zephdor commanded his troops. She cannot have gone far in her condition. But Princess Curavel was already flying through space. Toward human territory, the small scout ship was fast, but she knew the pursuing Zephyrian ships would be faster. She set course for the EU's horizon. The ship where she had first met Jake Martinez. She could reach them. She could prove to her uncle that she was not a prisoner. She could stop the war that was about to destroy both human and Zephyrian lives. The princess pushed the scout ship to its maximum speed, ignoring the warnings that the engines were overheating. Behind her, Zephyrian pursuit ships were closing the distance. She looked down at the music box in her lap. The melody had stopped playing days ago, but she could still hear it in her memory. The song reminded her of the first time someone had looked at her and seen worth instead of weakness. "I am coming, Jake," she whispered. "I will keep my promise, no matter what it costs." In space ahead, the human and Zephyrian fleets were moving toward each other like two storms about to collide. The princess was racing against time to reach them before the shooting started, but her damaged scout ship was falling apart around her, and her own body was failing as well. The question was whether she would arrive in time to prevent a war, or whether she would die trying to save the people she had grown to love. The two fleets faced each other in the darkness of space like angry giants preparing to fight.
Admiral
Tony Garcia commanded the human defense fleet from his flagship, the UES Liberty. He had 30 ships against more than 100 Zephyrian vessels. The odds were terrible, but humans had never backed down from a fight when innocent lives were at stake. "All ships maintain defensive positions," Admiral Garcia ordered. Do not fire unless fired upon. On the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Ross Mitchell studied the human formation. The human ships were smaller and fewer, but he knew humans were clever fighters. They had survived wars against other alien races by using tactics instead of pure strength. They are trying to delay us, Captain Nextdoor observed. Perhaps they are moving the princess to a safer location. Admiral Mitchell nodded grimly. Begin the attack. Target their command ship first. But before either fleet could fire their weapons, a small ship appeared on everyone's sensors. It was moving fast toward the human fleet, trailing smoke and sparks from damaged engines. Unidentified vessel, identify yourself, came the voice of Admiral Garcia over the radio. The response was weak and filled with static. This is Princess Caravel of the Zephyrian Empire. I request permission to come aboard the UES Horizon. Both fleets stopped their attack preparations. Admiral Mitchell stared at his sensors in shock. That is impossible. The princess is in a secure facility on our homeworld. Jake Martinez heard the princess's voice from his station on the horizon and felt his heart jump. Captain, she's hurt. Her ship is falling apart. Captain Chen looked at the tactical display. The princess's scout ship was leaking atmosphere and losing power. Bring her into the hangar bay, quickly. Admiral Mitchell watched in confusion as the human ship rescued the princess. All ships, hold your fire. I want to know what is happening. The princess's ship barely made it into the Horizon's hangar bay before its engines completely failed. Smoke poured from the damaged craft as the rescue team rushed to help. Jake was the first to reach the crashed ship. He found Princess Caravel unconscious in the pilot's seat, still clutching his grandmother's music box. Her silver hair was matted with blue blood, and her breathing was very shallow. Get Dr. Johnson down here now, Jake called into his radio. Then he gently lifted the princess from her seat. She was lighter than he expected, as if she was fading away. Dr. Johnson arrived within minutes and immediately began treating the princess's injuries. She's in bad shape, he told Jake. Whatever she did to get here, it nearly killed her. The princess's eyes opened slowly. When she saw Jake, she tried to smile. I kept my promise, she whispered. I am here with you. Don't talk, Jake said. Save your strength. But the princess shook her head weakly. No time. The fleets will fight unless they understand the truth. Captain Chen arrived in the medical bay just as Dr. Johnson was connecting the princess to life support equipment. Princess, your uncle thinks we kidnapped you. I know, she said, her voice getting weaker. He cannot understand that I chose to help you. In Zephyrian culture, family loyalty is absolute. He sees my actions as betrayal. Jake held her hand carefully. How can we make him understand? The princess looked at the music box she was still holding. There's a way. But it will require the last of my strength. What way? Captain Chen asked. I can use my psychic abilities to share my memories with everyone in both fleets. They will see the truth through my eyes. They will understand that I was never your prisoner. Dr. Johnson looked alarmed. Princess, you're already dying from overusing your powers. If you do this, I will die, she finished quietly. But the war will be prevented. Thousands of lives will be saved. Jake felt tears in his eyes. There has to be another way. The princess squeezed his hand with what little strength she had left. Jake, when you gave me this music box, you showed me that kindness exists between different peoples. You taught me that helping others is more important than following rules. Now I must use that lesson to save both our peoples, before anyone could stop her. Princess Caravel closed her eyes and began to concentrate. The music box in her other hand began to glow with a soft, warm light. In space, every person on every ship in both fleets suddenly felt a strange sensation in their minds. It was as if someone was gently touching their thoughts. Then the memories began. Admiral Mitchell experienced the princess's childhood, feeling her pain at being rejected by her own people because of her disability. He felt her loneliness as she was hidden away from public view. He experienced her shame at being considered a burden to the royal family. Every Zephyrian warrior felt the princess's joy when Jake had given her the music box. They experienced her wonder at meeting humans who saw her as a person rather than a problem. They felt her determination to help these kind strangers who had shown her more respect in one day than her own people had shown her in a lifetime, the human crews experienced the princess's struggle with her decision to help them. They felt her internal conflict between loyalty to her family and her desire to prevent suffering. They experienced her pain each time she used her powers, knowing that she was slowly dying to keep them safe. Most importantly, everyone in both fleets experienced the princess's love for both peoples. They felt her desperate hope that humans and Zephyrians could become friends instead of enemies. They experienced her willingness to sacrifice her life to build a bridge between two worlds. The psychic sharing lasted only a few minutes, but it felt like hours. When it ended, there was complete silence in space. No one spoke. No one moved. Everyone was trying to process what they had experienced. On the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Mitchell was staring at his hands with tears in his large alien eyes. He had felt his niece's love for him, despite everything. He had also felt her sadness at disappointing the family she wanted to protect. Admiral Captain, next door, said quietly, "What are your orders?" Admiral Mitchell took a long moment to answer. "Send a message to all ships. The attack is cancelled." On the human ships, similar conversations were taking place. Admiral Garcia had felt the princess's genuine desire to help humanity, not because she was forced to, but because humans had shown her kindness. "All ships, stand down from combat alert," he ordered. "Prepare for peaceful negotiations." In the medical bay of the horizon, Princess Curavel opened her eyes one last time. The effort of sharing her memories with so many minds had used up the last of her life energy. "Did it work?" she asked Jake weakly. Jake looked at his communication display, which showed both fleets moving away from combat positions. "Yes, it worked. The fighting has stopped."
Oh.
The princess smiled, and for a moment she looked like the happy young woman she might have been in a different world. "I am glad. Jake, will you play the music box one more time?" Jake wound up the small music box with shaking hands. The gentle melody of Amazing Grace filled the medical bay. The princess listened with peaceful eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, "for showing me that I had value. Thank you for teaching me that kindness is stronger than fear." She took one last breath and closed her eyes forever. Jake held her hand as Dr. Johnson checked for vital signs and shook his head sadly. The brave alien princess who had sacrificed everything to prevent a war was gone. But something strange happened as she died. The music box began to glow again, brighter than before. The light seemed to flow from the music box into Jake, filling him with warmth and knowledge. Suddenly, Jake could understand Zephyrian language perfectly. He could sense the emotions of the alien crews in the nearby fleet. He realized that the princess had given him a final gift. Part of her psychic abilities and all of her knowledge had passed to him in her final moments. Jake, Captain Chen said, "Softly, are you all right?" Jake looked up, still holding the glowing music box. "She's still with me," he said in wonder, just like she promised. Outside, the two fleets that had come to fight were now working together to arrange a peaceful meeting. The princess's sacrifice had not only prevented a war, but it opened the door for a new alliance between humans and Zephyrians. Her promise to always be with Jake had been kept in the most powerful way possible. Through her final gift, she would continue to help build the friendship between their peoples that she had dreamed of creating. 6 months had passed since the death of Princess Curavel, and the galaxy was a different place. The princess's sacrifice had not been forgotten. Instead, it had become the foundation for something beautiful and new. Jake Martinez stood in the Great Hall of the Zephyrian Embassy on Earth, wearing the formal blue uniform of a diplomatic ambassador. The transformation from simple communications officer to humanity's first ambassador to the Zephyrian Empire still amazed him sometimes. But he had learned that life often takes unexpected turns when people choose kindness over fear. The psychic abilities that Princess Curavel had passed to him in her final moments had grown stronger over the months. Jake could now understand all Zephyrian languages without a translator. He could sense the emotions and intentions of the aliens he worked with, which made negotiations much easier. Most importantly, he could sometimes hear the princess's voice in his mind offering guidance. When he faced difficult decisions, "The trade agreement is ready for signing," said his assistant, Amy Walsh. who had transferred from the Horizon to help with the new embassy. Both sides seemed happy with the terms. Jake nodded, but his attention was focused on the small music box sitting on his desk. It still glowed softly sometimes, especially when he was working on important diplomatic matters. The melody still played the same gentle tune, but now it carried echoes of an alien princess's hopes and dreams. Emperor Zefdor entered the hall, accompanied by his guards and advisors. The massive alien leader looked older than he had 6 months ago. Losing his daughter had changed him deeply. The memories that Princess Kiravel had shared with the fleets had shown him how much pain his own cultural prejudices had caused his child. "Ambassador Martinez," the Emperor said, his voice carrying both sadness and respect, "I bring news from the Imperial Council." Jake stood and bowed in the Zephyrian manner. "Your Majesty, what news do you bring?" "The Council has voted to establish the Princess Kiravel Memorial Foundation," the Emperor announced. "It will provide support and medical care for disabled individuals throughout the Empire, regardless of their species or social status." Jake felt a warm sensation in his chest, as if the princess was pleased by this news. "She would be honored, Your Majesty." The Emperor nodded sadly. "My daughter taught me that strength comes in many forms. I was a fool to be ashamed of her differences." Over the past months, Jake had worked tirelessly to build bridges between human and Zephyrian cultures. The princess's sacrifice had opened minds, but it took daily work to keep them open. He had established student exchange programs, allowing young humans to study on Zephyrian worlds and young Zephyrians to experience human culture. The most successful program was the Joint Medical Research Project. Human doctors worked alongside Zephyrian healers to develop new treatments for genetic conditions like the one that had affected Princess Kiravel. Dr. Sam Johnson, now director of the program, had made remarkable progress. "We're learning that what some cultures see as disabilities, others see as different abilities," Dr. Johnson had explained to Jake during their last meeting. The princess's condition gave her psychic powers. Other genetic variations might have their own advantages. Jake had also worked to change how both species viewed physical differences. He gave speeches at schools and universities, sharing a story of how a disabled alien princess had prevented a war through her courage and sacrifice. Children from both worlds learned that heroism came in many forms. Admiral Ross Mitchell, who had once led the Zephyrian fleet toward war, now served as military liaison between the two species. The memories he had experienced of his niece's thoughts had transformed him from a warrior focused on conquest to a protector focused on peace. "She was braver than any soldier I've ever known," the Admiral often said when speaking about the princess. "She fought her greatest battle not with weapons, but with love." The joint human-Zephyrian fleet now patrolled the border regions, protecting both species from hostile aliens and pirates. The cooperation between the two militaries had become a model for other galactic alliances. Jake's own crew from the Horizon had all received new assignments related to the growing alliance. Captain Lisa Chen now commanded the joint fleet. Engineer Lucy Davis worked on combining human and Zephyrian technologies. Security Chief Carl White trained mixed units of human and alien peacekeepers. But it was the smaller, daily interactions that truly showed how much had changed. Jake watched through his office window as human and Zephyrian children played together in the embassy garden. They had created games that combined elements from both cultures, and they switched easily between speaking English and Zephyrian languages. "Ambassador," Amy said, interrupting his thoughts, "the youth delegation has arrived for their meeting with you?" Jake smiled. This was one of his favorite parts of the job. Once a week, he met with young people from both species who were interested in diplomatic careers. Many of them had been inspired by Princess Kiravel's story. The delegation included 12 teenagers, 6 humans, and 6 Zephyrians. Among them was a young Zephyrian female named Zarakis, who used a floating chair to move around due to weak legs. Instead of being hidden away like the princess had been, Zarakis was celebrated as one of the brightest students in the program. "Ambassador Martinez," Zarakis said, We have a proposal for the next cultural exchange project. What do you have in mind? Jake asked. We want to create a music program, said Brad Wilson, a human teenager from the Mars colony. Princess Curavel loved music, and we think it could help bring our peoples closer together. Jake felt the music. Box on his desk pulse with warm light. Tell me more. We want to combine human and Zephyrian musical traditions, explained Tixnor, a young Zephyrian male. We could create new songs that tell the story of our friendship, and we want to include musicians with different abilities, added Susan Lee, a human girl who was blind but had incredible musical talent. Princess Curavel showed us that being different doesn't mean being less capable. Jake listened to their enthusiastic plans and felt proud of how far both species had come. The princess's legacy was living on through these young people who saw differences as strengths rather than weaknesses. I think it's a wonderful idea, Jake said. I'll help you get approval from both governments. As the meeting ended and the young people left, Jake picked up the music box and wound it up. The familiar melody filled his office, but now it seemed to carry echoes of other songs, other voices, other dreams of friendship and understanding. Are you happy with how things turned out? Jake asked quietly, addressing the princess's memory. For a moment he could swear he heard her voice in the music. I am always with you, Jake, and I am proud of what we have built together. Jake looked out at the garden where human and Zephyrian families were having picnics together. He saw former enemies working side by side on construction projects. Saw children learning that kindness was more powerful than prejudice. The princess had kept her promise in the most beautiful way possible. She was with him in every successful negotiation, every new friendship between species, every moment when someone chose understanding over fear. That evening, Jake attended the opening ceremony for the new Curavel Memorial Hospital, where human and Zephyrian doctors would work together to help patients regardless of their species or condition. Emperor Zephdor gave a speech about his daughter's legacy. She taught us that true strength comes from lifting others up, not from casting them down, the emperor said. She showed us that love is stronger than fear, and that kindness can change the galaxy. Jake stood with other diplomats and dignitaries, but his attention was focused on the music box in his pocket. It was glowing softly, as if the princess was watching the ceremony and smiling. The small gift he had given to a lonely alien princess had grown into something magnificent. Their friendship had prevented a war, created an alliance, and changed how two species viewed each other. Most importantly, it had shown that simple acts of kindness could have consequences that echoed across the stars. As Jake walked home through the peaceful streets where humans and Zephyrians lived as neighbors, he realized that Princess Curavel's greatest gift had not been her psychic abilities or her sacrifice. Her greatest gift had been teaching both species that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their differences. The music box in his pocket continued to glow softly, a reminder that love and kindness never truly die. They live on in the hearts of those who choose to carry them forward, creating ripples of goodness that can change the entire galaxy. Princess Curavel had indeed kept her promise. She would always be with Jake, and through him, she would always be with all those who believed in the power of compassion to build bridges between worlds.